Well, this is something I've been working on for a while in the background. I've been trying to come up with a new series where I talk about games that I'm not super familiar with or things that I haven't played to death over and over. Stuff like Resident Evil or Diablo or what have you. Games that have mostly just been kind of sitting on my shelf that I haven't really gotten around to playing yet. This is the first episode of Top Down Perspective, where I'll pretty much just kind of straight up review a game, but also talk a little bit about its background and stuff. Spider-Man: Web of Fire. This is one of the most rare and expensive games on the 32X, and is another offering by a Sega second-party software developer, Blue Sky Software. They had a pretty good partnership going with Sega back in the day. They made a litany of decent to great Genesis games back then. They had a pretty good track record. Blue Sky's list of contributions to the Genesis are as follows: Disney's Ariel the Little Mermaid, Jurassic Park, Ren and Stimpy, Stimpy's Invention, Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, which is kind of like an update / remake of the original game, and Vector Man's 1 and 2, which are both great games, probably the best ones they made. At first glance, this game looks like a pretty decent side-scrolling platformer beat-em-up mess. You know, you run around, you punch guys in the face, you sling webs, swing around, shoot webs, all that Spider-Man stuff, except crawling on walls. Well, he sort of crawls on walls, but mostly whenever he feels like it. Overall, this game controls meh, and there's some snags and jank that we're going to go over here. Moving Spider-Man around is pretty easy and fluid. Like, he goes left to right pretty quick. There's a little bit of a start-stop with momentum there. That feels good. The web slinging is good. It's probably one of the few things that works well in this game, along with shooting webs at guys and trapping them. But when it comes to the combat, it's kind of awkward. Like, you'll get in a fist fight with a guy, and Spider-Man will just kind of like swing his arms around stupidly and awkwardly. Like, it's a guy who gets in a fight who doesn't really know how to fight. Like, he's fucking Kimbo Slice or some shit underneath there. But then there's also things like you're running and then all of a sudden you run into a box or something, and he'll just stick to the box like he's gonna crawl on it. Like, I'm getting on. And sometimes he just does this without you wanting to do it. I kind of wish there was just like a dedicated button to stick to a wall or something. Like, you could hold down jump or C and he would stick to the wall, which is sort of like how another Spider-Man game controls, but we'll get into that in a sec. If I had to really sum up the main problems here, it's that inputs for punching and stuff are really delayed. Sometimes jumping will feel a little delayed, and the fact that the fighting is just so bad, because when you start fighting a guy, it's like you'll just trade shots. There's no way to fight somebody and not take damage really without trapping them in web and then just punching them like they're a fucking punching bag or something. It can get pretty mind-numbing though. Eventually you'll just enter this trance where every time you engage in combat in this game, you just web and punch, punch some more, punch more guys, web him and punch him, and you keep webbing and punching and webbing and punching, and you just keep doing this web punch. You do in the web, little web, little web, little web, little punch, little punch, little punch. You just keep doing the punches and the webs and the punches. You roll with the punches, sometimes you don't, sometimes you do a jump kick, like you're fucking Bruce Lee or some bullshit, and then you just and then you die. Anyways, this game's got 6 stages in it, and for the most part, they're not too hard to get through. Except for stage 4, which is some kind of oil plant or factory or something that's exploded. This level's annoying as hell to get through, and honestly, it's the hardest level in the game because the jumping and the obstacles are so awkward here. There's like these little fires that you have to jump in between, and sometimes the hitbox detection is like really wonky and off. Like the hitbox for the fire is wider, and I've never really been able to jump in between these perfectly. I always get hit, and it drains your health. And at this point in the game, the health power-ups don't give you as much health, and you have to fight so many guys and jump through so many obstacles, and it's just annoying. What's really weird about this, though, is if you think about this from like a game design perspective, the difficulty curve just kind of very slowly, gradually progresses, and then all of a sudden in this stage 4 it spikes huge. Like, this is the most difficult part of the game, and then when you play the rest of the game, it just drops back down to about where it was, really. Like, the later stages aren't any harder than this one. They're about on par with the other ones. And of course, at the end of each level, you fight a boss and blow up a generator or something. Every boss fight kind of looks like this. You do a little web, you do a little web, you do a little punch, you do a little punch, you do web punch, web punch, web punch. Oh my god, it's Daredevil! Punch, punch, web, web. Have you seen his Netflix series? Web punch, web punch, web punch, web, 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 dead. Really, in terms of gameplay and design, though, this game reminds me a lot of Spider-Man or Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin on the Sega CD and Genesis. It was made by a company called Technopop. Not Technocop, Technopop. It's a side-scrolling platformer brawler. You web guys, you web sling, you punch, you stick to walls. Very similar games, except Technopop Spider-Man plays better in pretty much every way. Makes me think that maybe Blue Sky Software looked to this game for some inspiration a little. Graphically, this game is also somewhat disappointing. I see flourishes and things that are somewhat impressive in the backgrounds of the levels that makes me feel like maybe the Genesis couldn't have pulled this off, but for the most part, I don't feel that way at all. Blue Sky Software has made some pretty impressive looking Genesis games in Vector Man and Vector Man 2. This was the best they could do on the 32X? If I had to pick one thing, though, that I really do like about this game, it's the soundtrack. It's very Genesis. Except it doesn't really sound like that Blue Sky Software utilized the 32X's extra sound chips. It sounds like they could have done this on the Genesis as well. The only track I don't really like is the first stages. It's just grating and droning. It goes on and on. Just, ugh. Now, with all things considered here, why is this game so painfully average considering its pedigree? It's not a bad game, but it's not really good either. Unfortunately, I don't really have an answer for that. I tried to look up information for this game for the course of its development, interviews with Blue Sky Software, anything. I can't find any information about this game. The only thing I can assume is that Blue Sky Software was under pressure to rush this game out or something. None of their games are of quality this low. All their other Genesis games were decent to good, like I said. It's worth noting again that this is one of the most rare and expensive games for the 32X. It actually is the most rare and expensive. And it's up there with some of the most rare and expensive games out there. This is within the price range of stuff like Snatcher and Panzer Dragoon Saga. Loose. Like, no box, no manual, just the cart by itself can command a price of anywhere between $200 and $300. Is this game really worth that much money? I paid $50 for this as a reproduction from Retro Gamer and Backups. Plug. And I still feel like it's not worth that either. Maybe as a $10 oddity at a flea market, sure, it'd be worth it, but not any of these other prices. If you were ever really curious about a game like this or other ones that are just stupid expensive, your best bet is to just emulate it. Or if you really feel the compulsive need to own a physical copy, get a reproduction. They'll almost never be worth the money you'd pay for a legit copy. But can I really recommend this to anybody? Probably not. Not unless you were a really big Spider-Man fan. There's just nothing that really stands out about it. It's just a almost painfully average game. It's almost not worth existing. That's how okay it is. If you want to play a pretty good Spider-Man game on Genesis, you could try out the Spider-Man made by Technopop, which I showed off earlier in the video, or Maximum Carnage, which is arguably the best Spider-Man game made for 16-bit. Check them out. Well, thanks for watching. I still got some other videos coming down the pipeline here. Work's kind of gotten in the way of me being able to get some of this stuff done. Unfortunately, I don't really have any other videos to plug, so I'll just plug some older ones here. I did a video last time on Resident Evil, tried to get it done for the 20th anniversary. I liked it. I don't know if anybody else does, but quite frankly, I don't give a shit. My friend Andy hasn't done anything in forever because he's lazy. So check out his Res video. That was cool. Go for it.
Looks like you're a born loser.